Fiancé dumped me. After 4 years. But his new GF ditched him. Now he pleads back. After being together for 4 years. My fiancé told me. You're not worthy of being my wife. I will find a better person. And left me. I simply laughed. Now his new girlfriend has married someone else. And he is pleading with me to come back. However, my new husband is the one who sees his messages. Robert and I were together for a little over 4 years. The first 2 years were, no joke, perfect. We moved in together after 18 months. My folks weren't exactly happy about it. But whatever. It's the 21st century. We were on the same page about everything. We'd binge the same television shows. We loved checking out new local restaurants. And we could just talk for hours about nothing. He would do these little things that made me feel special. Like having a coffee waiting for me when I woke up. Or sending me funny videos during the day that made him think of me. It was just that normal couple stuff that made me feel like I'd for real found my person, you know? So when he proposed on our 3rd anniversary, I was so happy. It was just a quiet moment at the lake where we had our first date. The ring wasn't some huge rock, which was fine by me, but it was perfect. I did the whole thing, you know. Posted the ring picture on Instagram, called my mom while I was crying happy tears, and started planning our wedding for the next summer right away. But then, about 6 months after we got engaged, things started to get weird. It was small stuff at first. A little comments he'd make about how I looked that weren't really compliments. He'd say things like, "That dress would look even better if you firmed up a bit." Or, "Maybe you should try a new hairstyle. Something a little classier." I would just laugh it off. But he started saying things like that more and more. Then it wasn't just about how I looked. He started saying I should be more ambitious with my job. He'd correct me in front of his buddies, making me feel like an idiot when I didn't know something he thought was common knowledge. He even started talking bad about my family, saying they were too simple and that I needed to elevate myself if I was going to be his wife. I wish I could say I stood up for myself right then and there. But I didn't. And the worst part? I started to believe him. I changed my hair. I bought a bunch of new clothes. I started working later hours. I even signed up for online classes because he said I needed to be more cultured. It's so embarrassing to look back on how much I tried to change for him. But when you love someone, sometimes you don't realize how bad things are until you're already in over your head. The whole thing blew up 3 months before the wedding. We were talking about the last-minute details, and he brought up my wedding dress, which he hadn't even seen. "I'm traditional that way," he said. Then he told me his mom was worried I would pick something expected rather than classy enough. I asked him what in the world that was supposed to mean, and he just let it all out. He went on this whole tirade about how he felt like he was settling for me and was starting to think I wasn't wife material for someone on his level. He said his family was worried I wouldn't be able to represent him properly with his friends and coworkers. Then he said the words I will never, ever forget. He looked me dead in the eye and told me I wasn't worthy of being his wife, and that he was pretty sure he could find someone better. I just sat there, totally floored. 4 years together, and that's what he really thought of me? That I wasn't worthy? I mean, who says that to someone they're supposed to love? I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just started laughing. For real. A laugh just came out of me. It was like a switch flipped in my head. The whole situation was just so ridiculous. All this time I was trying to be good enough for him, when the truth was, he wasn't good enough for me. My laughing was definitely not the reaction he was looking for. He got all confused, then mad, asking me what was so damn funny. I just shook my head and told him he was right. We shouldn't get married. But not because I wasn't worthy, but because I deserved way better than someone who spent all his time making me feel small. I grabbed my purse, walked right out of our apartment, and drove straight to my best friend Stella's house. The crying didn't start until later that night. 4 years is a long time to put into someone, and knowing it was really over just hit me like a ton of bricks. But underneath all the sadness, I felt this huge sense of relief. It was like I'd been carrying a 50-pound backpack for a year and someone finally took it off my shoulders. Robert blew up my phone for the next few days with calls and texts. First, he was mad, calling me dramatic and saying I was overreacting. Then he switched to sorry, saying he didn't really mean it and was just stressed out about the wedding. Finally, he went back to being a jerk, telling me I was making a huge mistake and that I would regret walking away from him. I crashed at Stella's for 2 weeks while I tried to get my life sorted out. Calling off a wedding is a complete nightmare. Let me tell you, wedding insurance is worth every single penny, y'all. But my friends were incredible. They helped me call all the vendors, deal with returning gifts, and tell people the wedding was off. My parents were great, too. But I could tell my mom was worried about what people would say. You know how small towns are. The gossip mill is vicious. The hardest part was going back to the apartment to get my stuff. I made sure to go when I knew he'd be at work, but of course, he showed up anyway. He kept switching back and forth between begging me to come back and telling me in this cold voice that I was making the biggest mistake of my life. He actually said, "Good luck finding someone else at your age." I was 29. Like that's ancient or something. I almost laughed in his face again. The craziest thing was, he seemed more worried about how things looked than about actually losing me. He kept saying stuff like, "Everyone's going to be talking about this," and "My family already told everyone about the wedding." He never once said, "I love you," or "I'll miss you." That was when I knew, 100%, that I was making the right choice. I found a little apartment on the other side of town and I just poured all my energy into making it my own. It was the first time I had ever lived all by myself, and honestly, it was the most freeing thing ever. I could decorate it however I wanted, watch any show I wanted without someone judging me, and just be myself without feeling like I was being graded. The first month was tough. I won't lie. For the first month, I'd sometimes wake up and reach for his side of the bed, or I'd think of a funny story to tell him before I remembered we weren't a thing anymore. But bit by bit, I started finding the old me again. The parts that I'd kind of packed away during our relationship. I started doing things again that I'd stopped because he thought they were silly. I called up old friends that I'd kind of let go of because he didn't really vibe with them. So, about 6 weeks go by, and I started hearing from friends that Robert was going around telling people I had some kind of, mental breakdown, and that's why I dumped him. That is so typical of him. You know, just making up a new story so he doesn't have to look bad. For a second, I thought about posting something or calling people to tell them what really happened, but then I was like, what's the point? It doesn't even matter what those people think. My real friends and family knew the truth, and that's all that mattered. The thing that really surprised me, though, was how many people texted me just to check in. A few of them even told me they had noticed how Robert talked down to me and that they'd been worried about me for a while. Get this. And one of his own cousins even sent me a message saying she was proud of me for leaving him. Hearing that stuff really helped on the days I started to wonder if I did the right thing. While all this was going on, Robert's texts started to slow down, but they got weirder and more manipulative. He'd send me random stuff. Like, he'd text saying, "Just saw your favorite movie is playing downtown," or, "Remember that restaurant we always wanted to check out? I went there today." It was never an apology or anything. It was just these weird little messages. Like he was trying to leave a trail of breadcrumbs to remind me of what I was supposedly missing out on. I never answered a single one. It's been 3 months now since that big fight. And I can tell you for real, I'm doing way better than I thought I would be. My apartment finally feels like it's mine. Like it's my home. I'm killing it at work, too. Turns out I am pretty ambitious when I don't have someone in my ear telling me my job isn't good enough. I've even gone on a few dates. Nothing serious. Just meeting up for coffee. It's more just to prove to myself that there are still good guys out there. I still have my moments. You know? Times when I miss the good parts. 4 years is a long time. And it wasn't all bad. But then I just picture his face when he told me I wasn't worthy. And I know, without a doubt, I made the right call. So yeah. That's me now. Single at 29. Starting completely over. And honestly, I'm okay with it. More than okay. Actually, I have no idea what's coming next. But for the first time in a long time, I'm actually excited to see what happens. First update. Hey y'all. It's been about 8 months since I first posted. And man, a lot has gone down. So I figured I owed you an update. First off, thank you so much for all the nice comments. I read every single one, even if I couldn't write back to all of them. You guys for real helped me get through a super tough time. So, where do I even start? I guess with Robert. About a month after my last post, I heard from some friends that he was already seeing someone new. Her name is Bella, and apparently she's everything I'm not. Comes from a rich family. Has some fancy job in the city that she drives like an hour to get to. And according to Stella, who ran into them, she dresses like she just stepped out of a fashion magazine. I'm not gonna lie, hearing that stung more than I wanted to admit. Even though I knew he was so wrong for me. There's a special kind of sucky feeling that comes with seeing how fast someone can just replace you after 4 whole years. I definitely had a bad weekend after I heard about them. I just stayed home, felt sorry for myself, and scrolled through old pictures. wondering if I should have just tried harder to be the person he wanted me to be. But then I remembered why we broke up. I remembered him saying, "You're not worthy." That showed me exactly what he thought of me deep down. You should never have to change yourself to be worthy of someone's love. They either love you for you, or they don't deserve you. My therapist helped me see that. Yeah. I started therapy after the breakup, and it's been awesome. Anyway. So, that Monday, I made myself get out of my apartment and met Stella for dinner. She told me her brother was having a birthday party that weekend and pretty much begged me to come. After she twisted my arm a bit, and maybe after a glass or two of wine. LOL. I said I'd go. And y'all, that's where I met Ryan. He's Stella's brother's best friend from college and was just in town for the birthday. We ended up talking for most of the night. First with a bunch of people, but then somehow we ended up on the porch swing. Just us. Having this really deep talk about everything from our favorite podcasts to our biggest fears. There was no pressure, no awkward hitting on each other, just this super easy connection that I don't think I've ever felt before. I was not looking to get into another relationship. For real. I was loving being on my own and was still getting over the whole Robert thing. But Ryan and I swapped numbers, and he texted me the next day asking if I wanted to get coffee before he drove back home. He lives about 40 minutes away in the next town over. That coffee date turned into lunch, which turned into a walk in the park, which then turned into dinner. We spent the whole day together and it just felt so easy. He asked me real questions and actually listened to my answers. He talked about his family with so much love, and not one time did he say anything about how I look, or my job, or what I should be doing with my life. He just seemed to like me for me, not for who he thought I could be. We started dating long distance, if you can even call a 40-minute drive long distance. LOL. Some weekends he'd come to my town, and other weekends I'd go to his. We had our share of funny, awkward moments. Like the time his robot vacuum got stuck under the couch during our third date and started making this awful screeching sound right in the middle of a serious talk. Or the time I tried to cook him dinner and set off his smoke alarm 3 different times. But instead of that stuff causing a fight, it just became a funny story we could laugh about. About 3 months after we started dating, I ran into Robert and Bella at Target. I had been so scared of this moment, thinking I'd feel jealous or just not good enough. But when I saw them, the weirdest thing happened. I felt nothing. No jealousy. No anger. Not even a little bit awkward. I just looked at them and calmly realized that part of my life was totally over. We said a quick hi, and I could tell Robert was surprised by how chill I was. Bella was polite, but you could tell she was uncomfortable. The whole thing lasted maybe 30 seconds, but it felt like a huge win for me. Later that week, I got a text from Robert for the first time in months. It said, "It was good to see you. You look well. I would love to catch up sometime, as friends." I showed it to Ryan, and he just raised his eyebrows and said, "What do you want to do about it?" He didn't tell me what to do. He didn't get jealous. He just supported whatever I wanted. I decided not to text Robert back. Some doors are just better left shut. You know? As for Ryan and me, things just kept moving along. After we'd been dating for 6 months, he asked if I wanted to move in with him, since I was basically spending every weekend at his place anyway. His house is older, but it has so much personality. And he's been fixing it up himself, 1 room at a time. The thought of leaving my little apartment was scary. It was my safe place after the breakup, but moving in with him just felt right. Moving in together was definitely an adjustment, like it always is. We had to figure out where to put all my stuff in a house that was already full. We argued about the thermostat, because I'm always cold and he's always hot. He leaves his shoes right in the middle of the hallway, and I leave cabinet doors open. But instead of these little things causing fights like they would have with Ryan, they just made us laugh. Through Stella, who is still my #1 source for small town gossip, I heard that Robert and Bella were getting really serious. He even took her to meet his parents, which is something he and I didn't do until we'd been together for almost 2 years. I was surprised at how little I cared. If anything, I kind of felt bad for Bella, wondering if she was getting the same little put-downs that destroyed my confidence. About a month after I moved in with Ryan, the texts from Robert started up again. Nothing crazy, just stuff like, "How have you been? Heard you moved. Hope all is well. And, remember that band we saw together? They're coming back to town." I either ignored them or just replied with something short and boring. I didn't tell Ryan about every single text because they just seemed so pointless. But I wasn't hiding them either. Then one day, Robert called me. I was cooking dinner with Ryan when my phone started ringing. and I saw his name on the screen. I felt my stomach drop. I showed the phone to Ryan. "You can answer if you want," he said, just being calm and giving me the space to decide for myself. I ignored it. But Robert left a voicemail. He said he wanted to meet up because he had some things he needed to say to me in person. I talked about it with Ryan, and then I decided to text Robert back. I told him I was really happy in my relationship and didn't think meeting up was a good idea. He texted back right away, "I understand. I just wanted to apologize properly for how things ended. I said things I didn't mean. It was way too little, way too late, but at least it was something." I texted back, "Thank you for the apology," and left it at that. Life went on. Ryan and I got into a nice routine that never felt boring. We checked out new restaurants, went on weekend trips, and had game nights with our friends. We talked about the future, but it was always casual, never any pressure. And then, 6 months after I moved in, Ryan proposed. It wasn't some big, flashy thing. We were just having a picnic at a lake. Not the same one as Robert. Thank God. He just looked at me and said he couldn't imagine his life without me. The ring was perfect. It was a vintage sapphire that belonged to his grandmother. I cried. I laughed. And I said yes without even thinking about it. That night, we were celebrating with champagne on our porch when my phone lit up. It was a text from Robert. It said, "Heard about your engagement. Didn't realize things were that serious. Hope you're not rushing into anything you'll regret." I showed it to Ryan. He just shook his head and said, "Some people never change. Do they?" We both decided the best thing to do was nothing. And I blocked Robert's number right then and there. Whatever weird game he was trying to play, I was done. The next day, we put it on Facebook. Because it's not real until it's Facebook official. Right? LOL. The love from our friends and family was amazing. And in the comments, Stella wrote something that made me laugh out loud. "From not worthy to worthy of the best man I know in less than a year." That's what I call an upgrade. I probably should have been embarrassed that she brought that up. But honestly, it felt like the perfect summary of the whole journey. We set our wedding date for 6 months from then. Nothing crazy. Just a small ceremony with the people we love the most. That's next month. And I'm not feeling nervous or scared at all. I'm just excited. And so sure that I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Oh. And here's the cherry on top of this whole story. I heard through the grapevine, because you can't keep a secret in a small town, that Bella broke up with Robert last week. Apparently, she ran into an old boyfriend and realized she had been settling for Robert. You just can't make this stuff up. The irony is just too good. So that's my update. I went from being told I wasn't worthy to finding someone who makes me feel like the most important person in the world every single day. I guess sometimes the worst endings really do lead to the best beginnings. I'll update you guys again after the wedding if you want. And thanks again for all your support on my first post. It really meant the world to me and helped me through the hardest time of my life. Second update. Hey y'all. It's been a hot minute since my last update. Almost 6 months. And boy, do I have some tea for you. Life has been absolutely nuts. And I honestly wasn't going to post again. But what just happened is too wild not to share. So, where did I leave off? Right. Ryan and I were engaged. And we had a wedding date. Planning the wedding this time around was a whole different ballgame. With Robert, it was all about what his family and friends would think. With Ryan, we just focused on what would make us happy. We planned a small ceremony, with just our close friends and family. Nothing fancy, but everything was meaningful. There were no arguments about if the napkins were the right shade of blue, or if my dress was classy enough. I still can't believe I ever put up with that. About 2 months before our wedding, Stella hit me with the biggest piece of gossip. Remember Bella? Robert's perfect girlfriend who was supposedly everything I wasn't? Well, turns out she'd been spending time with Stella's brother, Barry, on their commute into the city for work. It started with them just being train buddies. Then they started getting coffee. And then it turned into more than just friends. She broke up with Robert pretty much out of the blue. And apparently, he was a total wreck. I wish I could say I felt bad for him. But hey, karma's a real thing. Lol. According to Stella, he was telling anyone who would listen that Bella had blindsided him and that he didn't deserve this kind of treatment. Sound familiar? In the weeks before the wedding, I started getting more texts from Robert. I had blocked his number after I got engaged. But then he started messaging me on Instagram. It was just casual stuff at first. You know, congratulating me again, asking how the wedding plans were going. I ignored most of them or just sent back short, polite replies. Then the messages started to get more personal. He sent one that said, "I've been thinking about us a lot lately, and I realize now I made a huge mistake." I showed Ryan everything, and he just shook his head. The week before our wedding, the messages got even worse. "Can we talk? Just for closure? I'd like to apologize in person for how I treated you." And then, "Are you sure you're making the right decision?" That last one really got to me. Can you believe the nerve of this guy, questioning my decision, when he was the one who told me I wasn't worthy of being his wife? I stopped answering him completely after that. Our wedding day was perfect, in all the messy ways that make something real. It rained that morning, which they say is good luck. My veil got snagged on a rose bush while we were taking pictures, and Ryan's little nephew yelled that he had to pee right in the middle of our vows. But none of that stuff mattered. We were surrounded by people who really loved us for who we are, not for who they thought we should be. And yes, Robert tried to call me 3 times during the actual wedding. My maid of honor, Stella of course, had my phone and just hit silent every time. When she told me about it later, we both just laughed. Imagine thinking your ex would actually pick up the phone on her wedding day. The nerve. We went on our honeymoon to a little beach town about 4 hours away. We just got a cute little Airbnb with a view of the ocean. We spent our days checking out the local shops, eating way too much seafood, and just enjoying being together without any wedding stress. It was the most relaxed I'd felt in years. When we got home, I had 17 missed calls from Robert. Plus a bunch of Instagram messages that started with "I need to talk to you," and got worse from there. 2, "Please don't ignore me." And finally, "I made a huge mistake letting you go." I showed Ryan, and he looked more concerned than jealous. "Do you want me to talk to him?" he offered. "Maybe he'll finally get the message." I thought about it for a second, then nodded. We got the chance sooner than I expected. We were unpacking from our honeymoon when my phone started ringing. It was Robert again. Without even hesitating, Ryan picked it up and said in a super cheerful voice, "Hello." Ruby's phone. There was this long, awkward silence on the other end. Then Robert asked if Ruby was there. Ryan, as cool as a cucumber, said, "She's a little busy right now unpacking from our honeymoon. This is her husband, Ryan. Can I help you with something?" The silence on the other end was so loud you could hear it. Finally, Robert stammered something about just wanting to congratulate us. Ryan thanked him politely, told him we appreciated the thought, but that Ruby had completely moved on and would really prefer it if he stopped contacting her. He wasn't mean or aggressive. Just calm, direct, and firm. After he hung up, I just stared at him, totally amazed. No drama. No jealousy. No insecurity. Just a guy setting a healthy boundary. That's what a real partner does. Robert hasn't called since. He sent one last message that said, "I understand now. I'm sorry for everything. You deserve to be happy." It felt like I was finally closing the last page of a really long, bad chapter of my life. Looking back on everything that's happened in the past year and a half, it's crazy to think how torn up I was when Robert told me I wasn't worthy of being his wife. At the time, it felt like my world was ending. Now I know it wasn't my world ending, it was actually just beginning. I'm not sharing this update to brag or anything, though all your nice comments on my other posts really did help me through some dark days. I'm sharing this because I want anyone who's going through something like this to know that sometimes the worst moments of your life can lead you right where you're supposed to be. Ryan and I are talking about buying a house now, just a place to build our life together. Somewhere that's just ours, with no ghosts from old relationships hanging around. So that's me now, happily married at 30, starting a brand new chapter, and finally understanding what it feels like to be really, truly valued by someone. I might post one more update way down the road, but for now, life is good. Better than good. It's exactly how it should be. Thanks for reading, y'all. Your support has meant more than you know. Last update. Hey y'all. It's been almost a year since my last update. And I really thought I was done posting about all this drama. But life has a funny way of giving you closure when you're not even looking for it. And I just had to share this last chapter with you all. So, Ryan and I have been married for 15 months now. After looking for months, we finally bought our first house together about 4 months ago. It's a 3-bedroom, ranch-style house built in the 90s with some, let's say, interesting wallpaper choices and a kitchen that needs a serious update. But it has a huge backyard for our future dog. We're still arguing about whether to get a golden retriever or a rescue mutt. And it's ours. Being a homeowner has been a wild ride so far. The day after we moved in, the dishwasher decided to flood the whole kitchen floor. 2 weeks after that, we found out a family of squirrels was living in our attic. And don't even get me started on the bathroom sink that makes this weird gurgling noise in the middle of the night for no reason. But honestly, dealing with all these little disasters together has been kind of fun. Ryan and I make a pretty good team. He's better at all the heavy lifting, and I'm better at organizing all the chaos. Once we were mostly settled in, we decided to have a housewarming party. Just a casual get-together on a Saturday afternoon with about 20 of our friends and family. I spent days cleaning every single corner, making snack trays, and making sure our new place looked good, even with the half-finished paint job in the hallway. The party was going great. Stella brought her famous buffalo chicken dip. Ryan's brothers helped us set up the new patio furniture, and everyone was just chilling and chatting in the living room and the backyard. I was in the kitchen getting more ice when Stella came in with this super weird look on her face. She told me that Robert was outside. Yeah. That Robert. My ex. Who was definitely not invited to our housewarming party. Apparently. He just showed up out of the blue, holding a bottle of wine and looking a little messy. Stella had caught him in the driveway and was trying to figure out how to tell me without making a big scene. My first thought was just annoyance. This was our day. In our new house. The fact that he thought he could just show up after everything that happened. Ugh. But then I took a deep breath and realized I wasn't even nervous about seeing him. You know that knot that used to get in my stomach whenever I thought about running into him? It was completely gone. I told Stella to just let him in, because it seemed easier than causing a scene by telling him to leave. Then I went to find Ryan, who was in the garage showing his dad the new storage system he'd put up. When I told him what was going on, Ryan just raised his eyebrows and asked me what I wanted to do. Again. No jealousy. No, acting like a caveman. Just total support. Have I mentioned how much I love this man? We decided to go say hi to Robert together. You know. Be civil but not too friendly. When we walked outside, he was just standing there awkwardly by the snack table, looking totally out of place. It was obvious he'd had a few drinks before he came over. He wasn't wasted, but he was definitely loosened up. He handed me the bottle of wine, and the funny thing is, it was the exact same kind he used to make fun of me for buying because he said it wasn't sophisticated enough. The conversation started off so painfully polite. He said he liked the house, asked dumb questions about the neighborhood, talked about the weather, all while giving Ryan these weird side-eye looks. I could feel the tension building, but I just kept the conversation going, introducing him to people as an old friend. It felt like a generous way to put it, and it was way simpler than saying, "This is my ex-fiancé who told me I wasn't worthy." Things got weird when one of Ryan's cousins, who didn't know any better, said how happy Ryan and I looked and how perfect we were for each other. Robert mumbled something under his breath that sounded a lot like, "She wouldn't be here without me." When I asked him to say that again, he just let it all out. He went on this bizarre rant about how he had prepared me for Ryan, and how his criticisms had motivated me to improve myself, and how I should actually be grateful for our breakup because it led me to where I am now. I was so shocked I couldn't even say anything at first, but Ryan calmly stepped in. He didn't raise his voice or get all macho. He just said that while he was definitely grateful that I was in his life, my personal growth had nothing to do with being torn down by someone else. He then said that we'd rather just focus on celebrating our new home today and that maybe this wasn't the best time for this conversation. Robert did not take the hint. Instead, he turned to me and asked if I ever thought about what could have been if he hadn't let me go. His words. Not mine. As if he didn't tell me I wasn't worthy. The way he said it, like he was doing me some huge favor by even thinking about taking me back, just took me right back to that night when he broke my heart and my spirit all at once. I told him, as nicely but as firmly as I could, that I never think about what could have been because I'm too busy being grateful for what is. I told him that breaking up was the best thing that could have happened to both of us, and that worthy isn't something someone else gets to decide for you. It's something you realize about yourself. The look on his face was a mix of things: surprise, confusion, and maybe even a little bit of regret. For a second, I thought he might actually get what I was saying. But then he looked around at our friends, our home, our life, and his face just changed. He muttered something about how I'd changed. Like it was a bad thing. And that I didn't used to be this cold. Before I could even answer, Stella stepped in with the most perfect timing ever. She mentioned that she'd run into Bella and Barry last weekend at the farmer's market. Apparently, they're expecting their first baby this summer and just bought a house on the other side of town. She showed us all a picture on her phone, and they looked so genuinely happy. Watching Robert's face while he was processing all of this was like watching someone try to solve a really hard math problem. He seemed genuinely shocked that Bella had moved on so completely. Then Stella casually mentioned that Bella had told her that her relationship with Robert had been a learning experience. Ouch, and I thought he might actually explode. Instead, he just chugged the rest of his drink, mumbled something about having to go, and walked toward the door. Ryan, ever the gentleman, walked him out while I stayed behind with Stella. We were both trying so hard not to look at each other until he was gone, because we knew we'd burst out laughing. When Ryan came back in, he just shook his head and said that Robert had asked him man to man if I was always this stubborn. Ryan told him he preferred the term self-assured and suggested that Robert get an Uber home since he'd obviously been drinking. The party went on without any more drama, though I did see a few curious looks and definitely heard some people whispering. That's small town life for you. This will probably be the town gossip for at least 3 weeks. Lol. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Robert. It said, "I'm sorry for yesterday. I didn't mean to cause a scene. I hope you're happy." It was simple, a little vague, but probably the closest thing to real closure I'll ever get from him. I didn't text him back. Some conversations are just better left where they are. So that's it, y'all. Life isn't perfect, of course. Our roof needs to be replaced sooner than we thought. We argue about whose turn it is to take out the trash. And I still sometimes struggle with the little voices of insecurity that Robert planted in my head. But through it all, I've learned that worthiness isn't something you earn by changing yourself for someone else. It's something you realize when you're finally with people who never made you question it in the first place. Your support, advice, and kind words helped me through some of my darkest days. I won't be posting any more updates, for real this time, but I'll be around in the comments if anyone has questions. Lesson. This journey has taught me that worthiness isn't something someone else decides for you, it's something you realize within yourself. Robert tried to make me believe I wasn't enough, but walking away was the best decision I could have made. In finding a partner who values me for who I truly am, I've learned that love should never require you to change who you are. To everyone reading, have you ever been in a relationship where you felt less than you deserved? What helped you realize your worth? Share your thoughts. I'd love to hear how you've overcome these moments.